So let's experiment with the sun and some seaweed to create these fun cyanotype print wall hangers. We'll play around with photography on fabric using only elements from the sea. So without further ado, let's get into this project. I'm excited to experiment with cyanotype printing on fabric a couple different ways. I did pick up this pre-treated fabric off of Amazon, ready to go right out of the packaging. My limitations are that 8.5 by 11 sizing. I want to be able to have some larger, longer prints, so I also picked up some 100% cotton and the chemicals so we can make our own cyanotype prints on whatever size fabric we want. So next up, let's mix up these chemicals. All right, in order to mix up our chemicals, each bottle had a required amount of water to be added to them and left to sit for 24 hours, which I have done. So now in order to mix part A and part B together to make our cyanotype, we need to do this in complete darkness. So let's move to our guest bathroom, which is the only room in the house with no windows. Our guest bathroom is gonna work out perfect for making a makeshift dark room. We have the tub down below. We also have this rod up above that we can hang everything on. My husband uses it to dry out his wetsuits, which will work perfect for hanging all of our material up and let it dry over the tub. So let's get to mixing up part A and part B. I also got a set of clamp lights with some red light bulbs to make this easier for me to see, but not develop the fabric when mixing the chemicals together. So I'm gonna clamp these on, turn off the lights, and get to mixing. Okay, I'm gonna mix up 4 ounces of part A and 4 ounces of part B. 4 ounces of part A, 4 ounces of part B. Tell the difference in color. Let's mix them together. Okay, and they say this has about 2 hours now that it's mixed of work time. I found that folding up my pieces first in kind of smaller squares and triangles and then saturating it and wringing it out is kind of the best way to go. And then hanging it up to dry. So let's get to it. Okay, now to hang them up to dry. Okay, now just let these dry. So I've prepped the garage to be our cyanotype darkroom by covering all of the windows, all of the doors, with tin foil. I even got in the rafters and covered the vents with cardboard. That way when I turn off all of the lights in here, it'll become completely pitch black, which will make it easy for setting all of our cyanotype prints and then getting it ready to go to wheel out into the UV light to expose it. I'll give you a little taste of how dark it gets. Let's turn off the lights. That's what I'm talking about. Now for the fun part, I can go through some of my seed treasures that I've collected over the years. Kind of put a couple things together that I think will make some fun little negatives, because you have to think whatever's gonna leave a shadow. So these will be for kind of a smaller piece. I have some sand dollars, some sea urchins, some coral. I even have a big sheet of coral over here. But I wanna go to the beach and see if we can find a couple more fun things, some seaweed and also some driftwood. So let's go on a little adventure. Look at all that driftwood. Oh, we're gonna find some fun stuff here. All that seaweed. Ooh, let's go hunting. There's a open shark egg. It's kind of cool. I feel like this could be really fun. Bring some of this home. Oh, this is a total score. All right, let's get all these goodies home. Okay, it's time. Everything's dry in there. So let's put it in a black garbage bag to transfer it to the garage, keeping everything light sensitive and safe. Here we go. Okay, the fabric is all dry with the chemical on it, so let's take them off the hangers. I'll bag them up in this thick black trash bag to transport to the garage. That way the fabric doesn't expose in the light. Okay, I'm back from the beach with our treasures. I'm gonna lay everything out on a towel in the garage. That way it can kind of dry out, but we'll also see what we're working with. And then I'll turn off the lights. I'll leave the red light on. I'm gonna expose the fabric from the black trash bag to the darkness, but I'll pin it all out on some cardboard. Then I'll start placing our elements from the sea on top. And then the fun part, I'll open up the garage and finally expose it to the light. I'll push it out into the sun. I'm gonna let it sit for about 15 minutes. Then I'll take it into the guest bathroom. We'll rinse it off, and that's when the magic happens. We get to really see how fun it's gonna turn out. So let's get to it. Crazy to see how the sweat bubbles kind of form on the seaweed. Well, I realized that the seaweed was not dry enough on my first exposure because there was a bunch of watermarks left behind. So I did my best to dry off the seaweed more before moving forward on my next exposures. Seaweed is just such a tricky element to work with, especially once it starts to dry out. I also had some fun experimenting with some seashells and coral, which will be fun to see how those end up developing. I left everything sit in the sun for around 15 minutes before bringing it back into the garage, only exposing it to the red light before removing all of the elements. Then I'd fold up the fabric, place it back in our transporting traveling trash bag, and then we'll take it into the guest bathroom where we'll wash it with water and hydrant peroxide. And that's when the fun really happens, where we'll see these cyanotype prints come to life. I kind of wish I had maybe ironed the fabric before exposing it with the seaweed, but that is another experiment for next time. All right, now that everything's been exposed to the sunlight and has been bagged up and now in complete darkness, let's head back to the guest bathroom where we'll rinse it with water and hydrant peroxide, which will really make the cyanotype prints come to life. All right, we'll let them dry and then I'll iron them. A couple of these that turned out pretty cool. Definitely should have dried the seaweed out a little bit more so that it didn't leave those like watery spots. All right, while we wait for the fabric to dry, let's prep our driftwood by cleaning it and getting it ready to hang our prints. So I brought some driftwood back from the beach, but in order to clean it, I'm gonna throw it in this tub with some water and some bleach, let it sit. I let the driftwood soak overnight so it got a full cleaning, and then I let it dry out in the sun the next day. Okay, let's finish off these beautiful prints by nicely ironing them flat, cleaning up the edges. I'm gonna use my electric shears to cut them nice and flush, and then I'm gonna use a little Fray Check on the edges so that the material stays intact. I'm gonna hang them from driftwood, but I also am gonna put a little dowel at the top and the bottom, so we'll sew a little pocket for those. So let's finish this off. I really love the seashell one. And then we'll go through all of them and we'll talk about what worked, what didn't work, and what I learned. Finish these off. Now that I have the little sleeves at the tops and the bottom sewn, I'm gonna add a little dowel at the bottom, which will help weigh everything down and keep it nice and taut. And then we'll start looking through the driftwood pieces to see which piece suits each print, and then hang them from that. Okay, Okay, after multiple experiments have been made with the cyanotype printing on fabric with elements from the sea, let's talk about what worked and what didn't work. Starting off with exposure time. Big difference between 10 minutes and 15 minutes of what the sun can do to the exposure. No definition to the shells, much lighter in coloring. All that definition in the shells. So you could see that half cut print and darker in coloration. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. As for the pre-treated fabric that came in the packaging, I love the results. Great color, great definition, 15 minutes exposure time. Only downside was that it was 8 by 10 and I would have loved to be able to get it in the long banner sizes. I love how these turned out. I'm just bummed that I got these water spots because I didn't dry out the seaweed enough and it just left these kind of markings behind. But that's just me being a perfectionist. Other than that, they turned out pretty darn cool, especially with the driftwood to hang all of them on top. And I also made a round of bandanas because they were already pre-sewn edges, 100% cotton, got them off Amazon, and I treated the fabric and then was able to make a couple prints with some seaweed, some coral, and I also did some with some seashells. I'll have a limited batch of these on my site just because I thought they were fun. They'll be easy to ship. All the ones with the driftwood I'll probably be giving away to my friends. So now let me show you some of my favorites. All right, let me show you some of my favorites. Okay, now let me show you the bandanas. Well friends, I had a blast with this project and I learned so much about cyanotype printing on fabric using elements from the sea. Plus I have a bunch of fun wall hangers to be able to gift to my friends. I hope you enjoyed this project and until next time when we do another fun project together.